Good morning, y'all. Hope all is well. Just want to preface this video by saying that I am nowhere near a professional, and everything I state in this video is just my opinion. And this is not an installation video. This is just a review of the installation, and I'll be firing it up cold to see how this GSxR can and PROCYCLE Mid Pipe performs. So in a nutshell, I wanted to give this bike a little better sound, a little better flow, a little lighter weight, but I didn't want to go with something that was completely aftermarket, that would have to be repacked, that was going to be loud, that created so much more flow that I really had to do more than I wanted to the carb. So fast forward to the OEM can. I believe it has come from a GSxR 650 and 700. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the 35FO or 35F0, which is not the one that most people would like to get. The best one is going to be the 40FO, which is titanium, I do believe, whereas this one is stainless steel. And once again, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But this is a really good one here, and there are multiple other different ones that come from later years, and also the Hayabusas, which are a little bit longer and are not going to be as good as this one or the 40FO. So anyways, I really like this pipe because it is OEM. It never has to be repacked. It's not as loud, but it gives you a nice little rumble, and it's kind of a middle of the road option. So ProCycle makes the mid pipe, and that's where I got the mid pipe, and it comes with all the hardware you need. Now, depending on which GSxR or Hayabusa can you have, depends on exactly how you have to, do this installation. But anyways, it was a pretty straightforward installation. There was only one thing that kind of gave me a pause, and I had to kind of think about which route I wanted to take. So ProCycle gives you instructions how to do this, and basically the way they say to do it is to take I believe it's called a slip joint. Correct me if I'm wrong on that as well. But there's basically, when you disconnect this header pipe and put on this mid pipe, there is a joint in there that will not, if you don't take it out, it won't allow you to put the mid pipe in there. So you got to get that out. It's a little tedious, but you want to take your time so it kind of all comes out in one piece. Okay, so basically you'll get that out, you slide the header pipe in, you'll just fit that enough to keep it loose, then you'll fit this next one to keep it loose, and then you'll want to, before you put the can on, assemble the adapter plate, which works for the GSxR and the Hayabusa, so it has a 4-bolt and 3-bolt pattern. Okay, so you want to adapt that to this. All right, make sure you got a gasket in there, of course. And then once you adapt it, I would dry fit it. I wouldn't put any anti-seize or any RTV or whatever you plan to use on there yet, because you want to dry fit it and make sure everything lines up. And I'm glad that I did, because they send you a clamp for this. And let's see, this is it right here. They send you a clamp for this to use, okay? And if you use it where this is the stock hole right here, if you use it with the stock hole, what's gonna happen is your can is not gonna come all the way in and seat where it needs to seat. The end of it seats right there where that pipe bevels down in size, and it creates a good fit. So what you end up having to do on this specific one is cut this off and then use the clamp, and that will allow you to get it exactly where you need it. So you have, that's the first option. The second option is to not cut it off, put a bolt in that hole, but that will leave you seated about halfway to like 5/8 the way through this. Now, will that leak? Honestly, you could probably make it where it doesn't, but the problem lies within the springs will not reach, okay? So then you have your third option, what I did, so that the springs will reach, everything fits good, and it all works well, is I drilled 2 holes. I ended up using this one here because I drilled that one, and that was good, but the problem was that the springs were a little more tight than I wanted them to be. So I drilled a second hole, which was really easy, lined it up there. This deletes this clamp, okay? Drilled it there. It allowed it to go all the way where it needed to be, and I was satisfied with that, honestly. And I probably would have cut this off, but I say, I can always go back, cut it off if I want to decide to change it. But I didn't want to jump the gun on that. Plus the cutting wheel that I have is a little dull, so I didn't want to get a jagged cut. I don't want to do all that. So I was like, this is good for now. So what I did is, once I realized that, to get it in there, I just went ahead and put my anti-seize and a little bead of RTV in there, pushed it on, got everything fitted up, got everything tightened up. And depending on which can you choose out of the miscellaneous ones they have, you know, you might have to finagle a little bit, and there's different, you know, reasons why. Now I have an aftermarket top rack, so being so, it was a little weird finagling this behind it, but that actually gave it a little more support. And what I did, because I did not use the clamp, is I went in here, and this nut on it, I put the spacer in there, and I could just put the screw through the other side, but I wanted it to be tight and not come out. So I put the spacer, and that nut is actually from the stock GSxR can, because ProCycle gives you 4 new ones when you get their set up. So anyways, I did that. One thing I did forget to do, which is not, I mean, it's not a big deal, but I can always go back and do it, is put thread locker, because the stock bolts here, and here all have thread locker. Now I need to get some blue thread locker, and I'll, you know, go back and do that. It's really not that big of a deal. So anyways, installation was smooth, and I'm excited that I did get this can and this setup. And honestly, it cost me around the same as any, you know, aftermarket setup out there. But like I said, I like the fact I'm not gonna have to repack it. It's not gonna be obnoxiously loud. It's solid, and it's OEM, and you know, just some other factors. But anyways, it's just a cool little thing for the DR. Probably my favorite modification thus far. I was excited to after a year be able to do it. I rode the bike on the stock setup, and like I've made videos before, the stock setup, there is like zero problem with it. Honestly, it can improve, of course, but is it bad? Not at all. So I won't go too more into that, but the one thing that I'm gonna have to do most likely is tune the carb a little bit. I don't plan to ever cut the air box. I feel like that's where most of the problems are gonna come into play. And if you're trying to get the max out of your bike, of course you wanna do that. And if I had a secondary DR, I'd probably try to just, for fun and all that, to do it. And who's to say I won't do it in the future? But for right now, what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to basically, I need to drill out this fuel screw and reset that fuel screw where it needs to be. And then I'm gonna just taper the needle. But before I do that, I'm gonna ride the bike. I did change the spark plugs, okay? And I kept the stock spark plugs. This is the condition of the stock spark plugs. But I'm gonna keep an eye on the new spark plugs as I ride the bike with the stock carburetor and intake settings, and kind of keep an eye on the plugs and see how they do. Probably gonna ride it for a solid week and just kind of see how it does, keep an eye on the heat, see how it runs and all that good stuff before I actually go into this carb. Just so for documentational purposes, and so I can share that with y'all, because y'all probably have the same questions I do if you're doing this mod, like how does it run at this certain sea level with the stock carburetor setting. So this fuel screw is right up in there, up in here. And you can get the aftermarket adjustable one, that way when you need to adjust it, you can just go and do that. So I need to do that. But that's gonna be next. I went ahead and changed out the fuel filter too. I got one from ProCycle, so while I was at it, I changed all the spark plugs, got the aftermarket fuel filter. I was running the Tusk one, which honestly is a little more small and sleek, and it looks perfectly fine. I just, you know, rather replace it when I feel it's needed rather than visibly seeing something that needs to be replaced. But yeah, the DR is running smooth. It's got 8,371 miles. I do have this bulb, and this was like the cheapest upgrade. The wattage is a little bit higher, and so I thought that was worth it. Go ahead and put that on and see how that does. But anyways, yeah, that's the GSxR can with the PROCYCLE Mid Pipe. Just wanted to give a shout out to ProCycle, and I'm really glad that they make it, because if I had to fabricate it, it wouldn't have been a whole process. And being that I'm so busy with work and family and everything, it would have been hard to really find the time to go back and forth and do all that. Not that it wouldn't have been possible. Trying to think if there's anything else. I'm sure I'll think of something else later, but let's go ahead and fire this up. This would be a cold start. I have not even fired it up yet. This will be the first time. So let's see here. Shouldn't need the choke. Gonna have to hold in the clutch. Thing fired right up, but it is cold. That's what happens when you got the stock carburetor settings. Well, it's gonna be idle and high because I got the choke on for a second. The first impressions are at an idle, oh man, it's definitely got so much better flow, of course, as you all probably know that. At idle, it's not too much louder, but it's definitely sounds better. Hold up now. Probably got some of that stuff that ain't dry enough yet, but that's it. We'll have to work on the carburetor next and see how that goes, and I'll get back with y'all. Anyways, thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.